Hey there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thank you, as always, for being here with us today. I've got a great show for you. We've got Chad Nash with us. He is in the Denver metro area. He is known as the real estate doctor. And we were chatting a little bit before we started recording. And I'm just going to come right out and say it. This dude is a badass. We were talking for a while, and I just assumed, based on the information he was providing, that he had been in real estate for at least a decade. Come to find out, he's coming up on his 2-year anniversary as we are recording this. In his first year, he did something like 30 transactions and 15 million in volume. But the crazy part is he's also got a growing team. He's incredibly structured and very inspiring in his discipline, which is super impressive for somebody who's been in the business for less than 2 years. So I'm really fired up for him to share his story. Chad, with no further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell the listeners about your story and how you arrived in this crazy business, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Aaron, for making me feel like I'm like 60 years old. I guess I look super old, having been in the profession more than a decade. I feel like a dinosaur now, but I've only been in it a couple of years. I know I probably look super old. But thank you for the introduction, and thank you for allowing me on to the podcast. Your work is amazing, the way that you give back to the community as well. So it's just an honor to be here talking with you today. Okay. How did I get into this crazy industry of real estate? It was by happenstance, to tell you the truth. So I'm a lifelong educator. So we're similar in a lot of ways. I came from the education space and had done that for about 12 years. I had reached senior level administration positions within Denver Public Schools, within higher education. And I always thought that was going to be my path. And one day, I get a knock on my door, my nice, cushy senior level office in the organization that I was working for. And at that moment, they told me that my services were no longer needed. So I had, worked my whole life giving back to education and giving back to students, and that was my passion, and giving back to community. Earned a PhD in education. I thought that, this is my path, and this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And in that instance, it was kind of taken away from me. And, when I look back on it now, it was a godsend. They gave me a good severance package. And they said, we're just doing some reorganizing within the system. We have to cut some positions. We're going to give you a severance package. And initially, here I am saying, okay, I knew I could go get another job in education. I had a good reputation. But I said, this doesn't feel good. I've worked this hard, and I've always given my heart to others and given my heart to students and the education platform in Denver. And wow, they just ripped it up from me. So initially I said that, okay, maybe I'm just going to focus on doing some consulting work. And I was going to do some fundraising consulting. And as I was talking to one of my mentors, who happened to be one of our donors within the school district, I said, hey, Eric, I'm thinking about going this route. How can we leverage each other to make this happen? He said, oh, by the way, have you ever thought about doing real estate? And I looked at him and I said, that was a random question. Real estate had never been on my mind before. And I said, heck no, why would I want to do that? And the images that came to my head was like the HGTV, touchy-feely, like, oh, let's do the fix and flips. And I said, no, I don't think I would ever want to do that. And he said, well, because before I was let go by the district, we were doing some capital campaigns to acquire some buildings. And he was basically like, well, the skill set that you are using in terms of investing in the crowdfunding and getting a lot of folks together to do some, investing into some buildings within the district, that's all that real estate really is. And he said, well, why don't you think about, going into real estate and getting your real estate your license, and you could do some real estate investing, because it seems like you have a knack for that. So, kind of gave it some thought, came back and visited with them some more and said, hey, tell me a little bit about, your journey through real estate, because he had done real estate in a previous life as well. He said, just go take the classes, you got a severance package. You have nothing to do. You have about 4 months to just chill. And so I went to Armbrush. I ended up taking my classes at Armbrush. I just said, well, what the heck? This may be another avenue for income. And that's all it was going to be originally, was another avenue for income. It wasn't going to be a career or something I really wanted to do. And when I got into the classes, I was just like, wow, this is totally different than what I thought. Learning about the contracts and the law and a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that you never would think goes into real estate. And, being a representative for clients and an agency and all that kind of good stuff. And I fell in love with it. So, I really fell in love with the classes. And I said, okay, let me see how far I can actually take this. And, I went through the classes, started looking at firms, doing that whole kind of recruiting thing. And one thing led to another, and I found myself being a full-time agent after that.
So I'm laughing because you're the first person I've ever met that told me that you fell in love with real estate on the heels of taking the classes. Most people are like, well, the classes are pointless, and then you go learn how to sell real estate. So that's your first, okay? But so you took the classes, you got licensed, and then you obviously signed up with a brokerage, and then what? Like, what did you do to get going? Who was your mentor? Like, how did you go from 0 to 60, 30 deals in your first year? That's huge. What do you attribute that to?
Absolutely. So it's a funny story. You tell me if you don't want me to name names of brokerages or whatnot, but I'll just say brokerage A, B, and C. Even coming out of real estate school, I'll be honest with you, Aaron, I was not confident in myself. So here I was, I had a PhD in education, but now I was in a whole new field. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I can be successful really in real estate. I didn't really know how to sell real estate. Like I said before, I wasn't into real estate before. And I was thinking like, I have no background in, anything real estate related. Like, how am I going to be successful? So I went to brokerage A, and brokerage A had this really strong mentorship program. And that's what I thought that I needed. I said, let me go get hooked up and do a few deals with somebody who's done this for a while and learn the ropes. And, I'll just kind of learn along the way. So I went to brokerage A, was able to do a couple of quick deals, just folks within my sphere quickly, who I think, it wasn't so much that they trusted me to be a realtor, but they just trusted me as a person. But what I found when I went to brokerage A was they had this really in-depth mentoring program, but I found myself, and I say this, I don't want to say this egotistically, but I think that my thinking around the way that I wanted to engage with clients and engage in my business was a little bit more advanced than the mentor that I was with. It was a very traditional mentor, think about doing FISBOs, think about doing expires and all that kind. And I said, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to get into this industry to sit on my phone half of a morning calling people I don't know. I didn't want to go around just doing door knocking at random doors saying, hey, do you want to buy or sell? Because I knew one thing coming into real estate is I didn't want to be that salesperson. So what I was trying to leverage was, how do I take my personality that people knew me for, that fun-loving, relatable, community-driven personality, and do it in real estate without becoming like this car salesman. And I think a lot of the models that they were mentoring on were like the car salesman approach of real estate. Just, get in front of people, get in front of FISBOs, expireds, that kind of stuff. And what I found was I just didn't want to do that. And I started doing my own approach. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take this and do it a way that I want to. I'll learn on my own. I'll find the resources on my own. And I switched from brokerage A because they were taking almost 60% of my commission. And I was like, well, one, I'm learning in a way that I don't want to learn, and they're taking a whole lot of money from me to learn their way. And I wanted to do a different way. So I went to brokerage B, which was a lot more autonomous. And it was just by chance. And this is some of the advice that I know we'll talk a little bit later about, pieces of advice that I would give to agents that are coming after me. So here I was, and the reason that I thought that I could be successful in real estate initially was because a lot of people knew me in Denver. I was a native. I had carved out a pretty good reputation in the educational community. People knew that I was smart, per se, just by credentials. And so I already had this network, right? But what I started to find when I transitioned into real estate is that network was not actively seeking me out for real estate. So you could do all your little announcement and, hey, I'm in real estate, come to me. But you got to remember that these are real life people on the other side of that announcement, and they're looking at you saying, why should I trust you as a realtor? Yeah, we trusted you in education, but you haven't proven anything to us in real estate. We don't know if we can trust you with this investment, or we don't know if we can trust you with this journey. So it was by happenstance when I went to brokerage B, it was the very first sales meeting. And I had done 2 transactions with firm A. And I was sitting in the first sales meeting, and the managing broker stood up and said, hey, we have an open house that just came on the market. We're looking for an agent to hold an open house this weekend. Is anybody in the room? Does anybody in the room want to do it? So naively, I had not done an open house up to that point. So naively, I just raised my hand like, yeah, I'll do it. Cool. So got with the managing broker, and he kind of gave me the quick rundown of how to do open house, and, gave me his 4 signs to put out there. And here I was hosting my open house like on the first weekend that I joined the brokerage. Now, what I found when I did that first open house was, wow, here comes people into the house that are warm. I know that they're looking, they're ready. They're obviously looking for a reason. And now I get to really kind of use my personality to attach with them, to form a relationship within the open house. And out of that open house, I think I ended up getting like 2 leads, and I didn't even know how to do open houses at that time. It was just like, hey, here's a sign, here's a couple of bottles of water, here's a cool guy. Can't tell you anything about this house, but I can tell you I'm a cool guy. And somehow, some way, we just connected. And, kind of the follow-up was like, hey, we'd love to have a conversation with you about real estate afterwards if you, would like to go that route. And the reason I pinpoint that first open house is that let me know right there that was one of the ways that I wanted to generate business. It was being in an environment where things were authentic and that people could actually see me and feel my presence. And it wasn't just cold calling or, randomly reaching out to somebody saying, hey, are you thinking about doing real estate? So one of the pieces of advice that I would say is I ended up doing, in my first year, I ended up doing probably about 70% of my business through open houses. So I took that initial experience, which was just by chance, and I really started to say, how can I get great at doing open houses? How can I achieve the goals of meeting people, building a database outside of my sphere? Because again, my sphere wasn't turning over initially. And I think that a lot of agents, when they get into real estate, I actually think that that's one of the biggest problems that we shouldn't teach first year agents or young agents, to rely on their sphere, because there are so many dynamics that go into that. I think you have to build up credibility to be able to go back, as you talk about, like your village, and say, look, I know how to do this at a high level. Trust me to do it. Right. And I think that a lot of agents try to do that initially, and they get disappointed when their sphere is not activating immediately and they're not busting down their doors. They're like, nobody likes me. Nobody wants to work with me. Well, it's a natural human tendency to say, if I know Erin has been doing this work for 10 years or so, and I know she's an expert, and Chad, you just jumped in it. Yeah, we may like you, but we know Erin is going to get the job done. And that's just human nature. And I think a lot of folks, a lot of first year agents, they hear that referral based business up front and they just think that it's automatically going to happen. So going back to the point about the open houses, I really found that to be my first niche was I'm going to learn how to do open houses. I'm going to do it really well. And then I became very strategic in how I chose to do open houses because it wasn't, at first it was just like, hey, whoever has an open house, let me do it. Then it became, well, I want to make sure I do it in these neighborhoods. I want to make sure I do it in these price points because now I'm getting, I'm interacting with clientele that I feel comfortable, and it wasn't just taking me out of my element. Before I would do open houses out in Lakewood or Morrison, and I live all the way by Denver International Airport, which is 45 minutes to an hour. So if you're getting buyers over there, then you got to be ready to trek over to those areas. And I said, well, this isn't working for me. Let me be more strategic. And I started centering those open house opportunities closer to where I live. And so I really took, doing open houses seriously, how to prepare, things to provide, folks as they come into the houses and how to get sign-in information. I started just studying that every day. How can I get better? And literally I was holding an open house at least twice a month, in my first year. And it just drummed up a lot of business.
So I've heard this from a few agents that have been on the show, the success that they had with open houses. And I know that a lot of folks that are listening have probably done a number of open houses, if not a lot of them. And some have success and some don't. And I think that can be sometimes discouraging because you feel like, you're not wasting your time, but you're throwing away a day and you're going to prepare for it and you go and you do it and you've got to close it out and follow it, So do you have any advice for any specific things that you did, that you implemented to improve upon the success rate of those open houses? Any specific like tips and tactics?
Absolutely. And I wish I would have brought my little sign up here. I would have showed you my sign. But I tell what I learned is that the open house is not a one-day event, right? So it's not just the day of. And that's sometimes where a lot of agents fall. They think like, oh, I got this open house. I'm just going to be over there from 1 to 3. If people come through, great. If they don't, then the open house failed, right? What I would tell agents is that you should treat the open house like a week-long event. To me, I call it my 10-day open house. And when we can always talk about this more, but I'll try to flesh it out as much as possible, time permitting. What I do is I know I'm going to be holding an open house the weekend before the actual open house comes. I'm taking the pictures. I'm learning about the property, and I'm starting to market that open house, and I'm leveraging social media that Monday before, because you know how people are. If they see cool houses online, if they see things that they can click online, that's what they're doing. So I'm starting to post these pictures and the times of the open house like the Monday before. And part of that is lead generation. So, hey guys, I'm holding this cool open house. It's for first-time home buyers. It's a great property for first-time home buyers. It's a great property for whoever it may be. Click the link below. And what I was finding is that I would probably get, on average, 5 good leads just by leveraging it via social media leading up to the open house, right? So that's 5 leads that you could count for that open house event, right? Then what I always tell the agents on my team, you're never going to become an expert of a house that's not your listing, but you can always have 5 good talking points of a house that can make you sound like an expert when folks come into the house. So we've done the lead up. Now we're at the house. Always make sure you have these 5 key points that you could talk about, about the house, the community, the schools, surrounding comps, and one other fun fact that you might just want to throw out. So as folks are coming in, you're not barging on them, you're not following them around, but you're at least able to have a conversation just about random things about the house. But the one key that made me always successful, again, it's not about the house. I'm very good at getting sign-in information. And I would probably say about 90% of the homes that I go into, I'm able to walk out with contact information. And the way that I do that is, so if Aaron's coming into the house, before I even start a conversation, it's like, hey, Aaron, welcome to the open house. We brought you here today, blah, 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 that kind of conversation. Hey, Aaron, I'm going to let you do your thing around the house. I promise not to be one of those agents that's hawking you. I want you to have this time to yourself. But do me a favor, seller's request, just sign in for me so that we could keep tabs of who is in the house. I haven't asked them any annoying questions like, oh, do you have an agent? Because now they're starting to sense like, oh, they're just trying to, work with me. I'm keeping it very relaxed. This is your time. I have information that you need. Ask me questions if you need to. Hey, just sign in if you don't mind. I've got their contact information. I don't have to do that awkward ask of their contact information. Now, when they're done, I always have kind of this is what I tell my agents to do. I always say, make kind of like a lighthearted request. Say, oh, there was one house that I was listing one time that had a pink room upstairs. So, the folks come in, you do your spiel. Hey, make sure you sign in. Hey, there's this wonky pink room upstairs. Let me know what you think about it. I would love to get your opinion, right? So this is kind of like a redirect thing. Come back and talk to me when you're done. I'm not going to follow you, but just come back and tell me what you thought, right? So now with that technique, as they're leaving, right, you haven't hogged them, you haven't annoyed them, you haven't freaked them out or creeped them out. They come back down. How was the tour? Do you guys have any questions? Hey, what did you think about that pink room upstairs? Then, it's lighthearted. Oh my God, I would never do that on my house, this and that. Now you're just, building that relationship, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of times it may lead to them asking more questions. Again, you already had their contact info. Hey, I'll make sure I'll send that to you on the email that you provided, right? If they didn't sign up, just make sure you sign up and I'll make sure I get you that. But then I'm not even asking, again, if they have an agent or anything of that sort, right? Because that's what freaks them out. And then in my follow-up, this is why I call it the 10-day open house. I think I got a lot of my clientele from the follow-up. Hey, Aaron, thank you for coming to the open house. I would say something as like a trigger reminder. Let me know if you have any questions or whatnot. I just want to be a resource for you. Here's a website that you could search on, for homes that are similar. Here are similar comp homes. So, a lot of these agents bring in like pieces of paper with the comps and all that kind of stuff. I don't give any of that out. I don't do any of that at the open house. It's just me and my computer and the sign-in sheet because I want to send it to them afterwards. And if they're clicking on it, right, then it gives me a reason to follow up.
Sure.
If they're clicking on some of those comps that are in my comp list, I haven't just given them a piece of paper and they walk away and they're going to look at those houses. Now I can see in my CRM, oh, they really are engaged. That gives me a point to follow up. So how are you looking at that? Did you have any questions? Again, and I know other agents may, say whatever they want to say. Again, I don't ask if they have an agent or not. I let them come and tell me, right? By that point, if they have an agent or they're representing or they're looking, they would have told you that in the conversation. Like, oh, my agent, sent me here. Oh, I'm going to take these and look at them with my agent. Cool. Let me know if you have any other questions. But I think, when you just kind of use that more natural approach, I think a lot of buyers can sense when you're just trying to get their business. I think they're just not natural with their approach. And if you use a more organic way of building a relationship, and then you start to add that value after the open house, then that's when they start reaching out to you. Hey, what about, I saw this house on your website that you sent me. Can you tell me more about it? We're not really in the market right now, but we may be, and you start hearing those like triggers on how you could follow up and, be of service to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if in your first year, I totally appreciate what you're saying here, that, you jump in, brand new realtor, and, expecting your friends and family to suddenly jump ship from whoever they've been using for real estate in previous transactions, if they've had any, is kind of presumptuous until you've got some experience under your belt. Mm-hmm. This is the biggest investment of their lives. And then you were saying that 70% of your business came through open houses. Obviously, in this process, not only did you convert, quote unquote leads to relationships and relationships to closings, but you're also building a database in the process. You're adding to
Absolutely.
that database. So,
Absolutely.
What did it look like in your second year? Are you starting to see more of a balance of, are you now trending towards 70% repeat and referral, or are you still heavy in the open houses?
Absolutely. And that's a great question, because that was all part of the strategy. I like to think that it was my strategic thinking that made this all come together, but it just was by happenstance. But I think you're right on. What doing those open houses allowed me to do was a couple of things. So, I started doing like the Facebook Lives and, taking pictures of the open house while I was there, taking pictures of people up while they were walking through. And then I was building that social proof on social media and in my database so people could actively see me doing real estate work, right? Then a couple of closings came along from those open houses. Now I was able to get those testimonials, and then I thought of the idea of bringing in like a videographer to do like the video testimonials and all this cool stuff. And lo and behold, what happened, Aaron, was from all of the success of the open houses and the closings and the testimonials and learning the lingo of real estate, what do people ask, and how do I teach my team a defer and deflect strategy on how to defer questions to loan folks, or, deflect questions enough to where you could go research the answer and come back and provide the answers. Learning all those strategies from those interactions and getting that social proof, I was able to take that now back to my village, back to my social circle, and say, look, I really am doing this. And now as I'm marketing that and I'm pitching that out there to folks, what I started to see was now my circle really is, everywhere I go, it's like, hey, man, you're killing in real estate. Hey, man, you're doing a great job. Hey, man, your clients they love you, right? And now the sphere has caught on to that social proof that you've been able to provide, right? That you've been able to kind of grow organically. Now they really want to work with you because you've shown them like, oh yeah, Chad's for real. And he's not just doing this as a fly by night kind of career. So I think to your question, my business has become more about 90% referrals. Even when I want to do open houses now, it's like, as soon as I think about doing an open house, I'll get like 2 or 3 leads. And those leads are like, hey, can we go see houses this weekend? Or, hey, can we do a listing presentation this weekend? Just from old clients, just from the sphere that I market to, via social media or like through my database, email marketing or whatnot. And it just flows. It just flows. And I think, when I look at it, hindsight being 2020, it was a step of creating that social proof that was key, and getting outside of your sphere, especially and I tell folks, if you got a sphere like an investment banker or somebody, maybe a lender who comes in to, be a realtor, folks are going to trust you in that sense because they know you've been close to the industry. But if you're not coming from those industries where you already had a portfolio of business, I would just challenge them to say, find the quickest way to drum up business outside of your sphere and then use that success or even that mirage of success, where you're posting all over social media, like you're in houses doing showings, to create that credibility within your sphere. And that works for me. And that's the model that I try to teach my team. Do it this way. Don't expect to hit up your 30, 40, 50 friends and say you're in real estate and now you got 10 deals coming. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Very rarely does it happen like that.
Awesome. Well, you touched upon something that's just really important there too, because a lot of people hear that and they think to themselves, I know, I need to do social media, but what am I going to do? And I feel stupid. And what are people going to think? And blah, blah, blah. And the reality is that because social media is such sunshine and rainbows, right? Like everything always looks so shiny and glossy on social media. When you're leveraging social media in the context of your business development, it's exactly what you said ends up being the result, is that the people that are in your sphere, they see what you're posting and they say, it looks like you're killing it. Looks like you're doing awesome. And even if you're struggling and you're insecure and you're pushing through your fears, that's not what they see. They just see you looking confident, successful, and, taking action essentially. And so, I've just encouraged the listeners to not just take that with a grain of salt, but to implement that somehow in your business, because, that social proof is huge. So listen, I know we're going to be out of time soon, and I really want to cover something that I think is really impressive. Number one, you've alluded multiple times to having a team, which I think is very impressive for how long you've been in the business. Obviously, it seems really clear to me, and I'm sure to the listeners, that you're a pretty disciplined and structured person, just in the way that your process is so well thought out. And so many people get into our business and just wing it. So to me, that's really impressive how much thought you put into making everything you do kind of turn to gold and making it successful. So what are some of the things that you have done in order to make yourself feel like you're more in the driver's seat of your business? Like, it's so easy for this business, once it takes off, especially when you've only been in the business for a few years, you can kind of get carried away. Like, I feel like the business can take you on a ride. Like, you're on the hamster wheel, or you're on this train that's going off the rails. And when you're really busy, you're just so grateful to be busy that it's really hard to create any kind of structure in your day to make that level of success feel manageable and not chaotic. So what are some things that you've had to do, having experienced such rapid success in a short period of time, to create sustainability, to be able to manage your growing team, to manage your own business, to manage yourself? Like, what are you doing in your own life and business to stay sane, really?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the visuals that you just provided, literally, and now you're giving me nightmares about the stress, anxiety that at one time I was feeling, about the hamster wheel and the train that doesn't stop. Because I think one thing that we find is, as we ramp up, and those folks who are really committed to this profession, or, the lending profession, any client service profession, you want to give your all to your clients. And as you start to see your clients speaking highly of you and testimonials about the service you provided, and you were always there, and, there was never a time that they couldn't call. Now you start really feeding into that identity, right? And you're saying, look, this is what I want to give to every single one of the clients that puts their trust in me, because that's who we are. And you start to rev up, and you're saying, how do I give every single person that 5-star service? So, I would always tell my clients in all the consultation meetings, hey, my phone is always on. If you need me, you watch a YouTube video about real estate and you hear something that doesn't sound right, I don't care if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, give me a call. Call me whenever you need me. That was always my thing, right? And you really try to live up to that. And what happens is, as you get busier and busier, you do become, like you said, that pinball, right? Because now you got more clients. Now the clients are calling 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night. And you find yourself living up to your own hype of, I need to make sure I give this client that 5-star service and be there to answer every single question right when they need it, or they're going to think horribly of me. They're going to think, oh, Chad really wasn't that great of a service provider. And you start to find yourself reacting. Every day you see an email come in, you're reactive. Oh, let me put this out so they know that I'm there for them. Oh, something is wrong with title. Let me act on it right now. Right. Oh, let me put this person in touch with a lender right now because they just texted me 10 minutes ago. And you're feeling like that's what you have to do to uphold that reputation of providing good service. And what I found is after that first year of just going, always on call, I was getting tired. And, I would look at myself and I'd be like, I'm only 30-something years old, but I'm just tired. I'm going to bed early. I'm not motivated, is, wow, man, I'm giving so much of myself to others. And what I learned is I didn't have that balance. And people talk about work-life balance. And, before I was like, I don't need work-life balance. I love to work, and succeed. But then when I started learning was, okay, you can still put in what you think are your 12, 15-hour days a week, which, yeah, you got to put in a lot of work as an entrepreneur, but do it on the time frames that work for you. Don't do it on the time frames that work for everybody else. Provide your same level of service, but, and I like the word that you used before we started, like this, design your life. So what I really got into, I would say about 5-6 months ago, was time blocking. And I know it sounds so cliche. They say, oh, time block for this, time block for that. But I took it literal. And I say, you know what? I'm not a morning person. It's not that I don't like interacting with people in the morning. It's just I'm not at my optimal peak in the morning. I have so many other things I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about business. I'm also thinking about my health and my family, getting my daughter to work, my daughter to school, all this kind of stuff, all this other stuff. So I finally said, okay, I'm going to try this system where I wake up in the morning, do all of my administrative tasks, wake up before the sunrise, 5 o'clock, knock out whatever emails are in my inbox at that time, set out my agenda for the day. But then from 7 to 1, I'm not giving anybody anything. I'm just giving everything to myself. And that means if I'm going to the gym, if I'm listening to a motivational video, if I'm reading a book, I'm having breakfast with my mom, or whatever it may be, something that is fulfilling to me. And I do that every day religiously from about 7 to 1. Then after 1 o'clock, now I can give myself to the world, showings, client consultations, happy hour meetups, professional development opportunities. I tell, my referral partners, look, I'm not going to be able to come to a meeting unless it's absolutely necessary. I'm not going to do a meeting before 12 o'clock. I always do it after 1 because I'm giving myself to you. And I've become very stingy with that model. Now, from 1 till 8, I'm busting my ass. I am literally busting my butt to give my best self to my client and to whoever needs me. But now I'm optimal. I'm up and going. I don't have to worry about getting my workout in or, talking to my daughter or talking to my mom. I've done all that. So now it's just me giving to others. And I really follow that structure daily. And my stress level has literally gone from like a 10 to like an 8.5. No, I'm just one. It's gone from like a 10 to like a 5, because it allows me to be structured. It allows me to operate based on who I am and not trying to fit who I am to others' needs. Everybody's needs are going to get met, but let me do it in a way that I'm most effective and most optimal.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head right here, which is that most people lose balance easily in our business because we're caring, service-oriented people. We want to help people. That's typically the DNA of most of the successful people I know in this business, but sometimes it's to a detriment. And if it's a detriment to you, trying to force yourself into being at your best when you're just not inherently at your best, whether it be energetically, health-wise, whatever the case might be, and we make excuses for why we can't prioritize those important things like our health and our spirituality and our, our mental state and our relationships. And so then we just kind of go through the day on reaction mode. The reality is that we're not actually giving the best service to our clients. We're not actually doing anyone a service when we operate that way. So I'm just really impressed that you have been able to recognize that and implement it and work on mastering it so early in your career, because it's going to be, it's monumental. It's going to be the cornerstone of the success of your business, and you're a model to all the agents that you're attracting onto your team. So you're not just changing your own life for the better and then able to change your clients' lives for the better, but now you're an example to other people in our industry. And that to me is more powerful than anything, because that whole go-giver philosophy it's happening as a ripple effect as people observe the way that you operate in your business, putting the rocks in your life first, and then letting this awesome business be a vehicle to support your dream life. That's literally what Pursuing Freedom is all about. So I'm just so glad that you shared that. I'm glad that you recognize it. It's really, really inspiring. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. I mean, the nitty-gritty with the open houses is amazing, and the nitty-gritty with creating some boundaries around your time is amazing. So I just know that the listeners are going to leave here with some really good inspiration to go and implement into their own life and business. So we always end with just how can folks either find you, follow you, consume your content, maybe reach out to you, pick your brain, join your team, hire you. Give us all the ways, all the things.
Absolutely. Well, our website is www.redocgroup.com. So that's RED as in dog, OCGROUP.com. You can find me and my fabulous team that makes me look 10 times better there. You can always look me up, Chad Nash, on Facebook. I'm always at 5,000 friends, and every day I'm like trying to delete one or two people so that I can add a couple more, relevant folks on Facebook. But we also have our Facebook page, the Redoc Group, and I'm also on Facebook as the Real Estate Chad Nash, the Real Estate Doctor, and then the IG would be Real Estate Doc 303. I love inquiries. I love to talk to folks, even if it's just random questions about how I am not an expert. I've only been doing this a couple of years, but if they look at my model and say, how did you at least do this part? I'm an open book. And you brought it up before, the philosophy of the go-giver. It's all about abundance. And so I don't believe that knowledge is to be hoarded. I believe that is to be shared. And, if you create good in other folks' lives, then ultimately it will come back and help you, maybe not in one form, but in other forms of your life. And so if anybody has any questions, anytime they can reach out to me. Phone number is 303-359-9229. And did I leave out any comment?
No, don't expect an answer. Don't expect an answer before 1 p.m. or after 7. He's not available.
That's it,
people, because that is not smart.
That's it. And I'll share it with you later, Aaron. I have this little scheduler link, and people crack up at it now, because as soon as people hit me up for whatever reason, I'm pleasant, like, hey, this and that, can you find some time on my schedule using this link? Obviously, my schedule is blocked out from those times, but it allows me to just not have to have that conversation.
Right.
So if they reach out, and there's no time on my calendar, just reach out with a phone call or a text, and I'll make some time. But yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're a real inspiration, honestly. Thank you so much. And I look forward to following your journey as you continue to crush it at life and in business and all the good things. And thanks, Pursuing Freedom friends, as always, for tuning in here today. And, I appreciate you more than anything in the whole wide world. And I am also not afraid to beg and plead that if you are enjoying the content that you're consuming here, please be sure to go to the app where you're consuming it, or YouTube, or wherever, and leave us a review, because it helps us continue to attract these awesome guests like Chad who are willing to share their story and inspire you on your journey. So I appreciate you. I love you. And until next time, make it an awesome day.